afternoon. Program Director, I would like to thank SASTA also for the invitation to come and present here today. I think as a former mathematician and now a government employee, I'm always excited to talk about the green economy, energy, clean energy, and so forth. So I'm always enjoying the opportunity to speak about what we're doing at DST. So essentially my presentation is going to really focus around what we're doing at DST, and then in terms of the work we're doing at DST, we've actually identified main, I'll say, gaps that need to be addressed, especially as we create a new knowledge economy for South Africa. So essentially, the Department of Science and Technology, essentially we have a vision. Our vision is to ensure that we ensure that we have a country with prosperity, but using technology and innovation to ensure that, or facilitating this through science and technology and innovation. But also in terms of the DST, in terms of our role as the country, in terms of the country, is to literally basically provide leadership. So this means providing the strategies and the guidance as to what areas should be focused on, enabling environment. So this goes to the funding that we give to universities, as well as ensuring that there is infrastructure in place to do the work. And then in terms of South Africa's development is around economic development, social development, and what we call inclusive development. Now, in terms of the green economy, essentially, as a globally, we're seeing the tensions. We're having shortage of water. We're having greenhouse gas emissions. We have, droughts that we're seeing more often. And essentially, we know that our resources are becoming more scarce, and so forth. So we want to go towards an environment that, even when we have restrictions on water, that we don't see poor households being affected negatively. In addition, in terms of what is the green economy, it essentially is saying that the green economy is looking at having a resilient economy that essentially ensures that there's better quality of life for all of us. And this is talking to the role of inclusive development, which is a challenge that we see in South Africa, especially if you have the inequality rates that we have even after 20 years. So in terms of the government, we have the National Development Plan, which talks towards a low-carbon economy for South Africa. We also have a green economy growth path, which is implemented by the Department of Economic Development. And lastly, we have a green economy accord. So this is basically government and industry coming together to say this is the role we're going to play in terms of ensuring that we can green South Africa's economy. So in terms of the DST, our role that we play, like I said, is enabling environment, which means putting in place strategies to basically essentially give direction to academics, private sector, as well as government as to where we should go. And I guess the key policy that we have at the DST is the 10-year innovation plan. So the 10-year innovation plan is based on the premise that we essentially have a resource-based economy. So every single time the gold price goes down, the platinum price goes up or down, our economy is impacted. So we want to actually move away from a resource-based economy to essentially what we call a knowledge-based economy. So no matter what's going on with the commodities market, we can still be resilient. And then also, in a sense, if you can have a mining environment, the challenge is you can mine for 40 to 50 years, and what's left behind is, like I said, we have water which is messed up, we have environmental degradation, but we're looking at either beneficiation or actually going past just mining as activities in South Africa. So in terms of the 10-year innovation plan, we have a number of initiatives. So I'm going to talk to the bioeconomy strategy, I'm going to talk to the Energy Grand Challenge strategy, as well as the Global Grand Challenge of DST, and how we as a department are moving forward this. So this is just an example of some of the projects and programs that we've sent out over the years. And essentially you can see we have a South African Risk and Vulnerability Atlas. This is allowing local and provincial governments to be resilient against issues such as flooding in your urban areas, or having crop degradation caused by misuse of your environment. And also even Bioenergy Atlas is looking at, how do you ensure that rural communities are involved in harvesting alien invasives and ensure that we have clean energy options. And then even in terms of the bioeconomy strategy, we also are doing a lot of work on biorefineries, in terms of making sure that your paper and pulp and your sugar industry are more resilient to the changes. So in terms of the Energy Grand Challenge, essentially, I think we all experience the challenges with energy. We probably have all had a situation where our lights didn't turn on because Eskom was going through rolling blackouts. Also, we felt the challenges of seeing the increase in the tariff that happens from ESCOM, above 10 to 20% almost every year. So essentially, as South Africa, we're looking for reliable energy that is clean, but at the same time, whenever you have clean energy, you want to ensure that everyone has access to that clean energy. So as a DST, we've been over the last 10 years, and actually 2018 is the 10th year of implementation. We've been funding research to the tune of about between 80 and 100 million per annum. So the purpose of this funding is to increase knowledge. So in terms of increasing knowledge, that means that producing publications as well as patents in the event you want to protect your information. Human capital development, so on an annual basis, we fund about 100 master's and PhD students across universities and science councils in South Africa. Knowledge infrastructure, so this can be pilot facilities or lab equipment that you need to test your theories in practice. And last but not least, enablers to the innovation, enablers to ensure that our technologies that go from lab to market don't die in what we call the innovation chasm. Now, in terms of the key programs that we fund programs across energy carriers as well as looking at the transition of clean coal technologies, as well as looking at clean technologies where the only output isn't fumes or carbon emissions, is actually water in some cases. So our flagship programs are Hydro in South Africa, Renewable Energy Hub and Spokes, Energy Storage RDR Initiative. We have Advanced Biofuels, which looks at clean coal technologies. We have the Center for Energy Systems and Analysis and Research that does a lot of modeling on policy. And last but not least, we have Energy Efficiency and Demand Side Management Hub. And this is important because the International Energy Agency says that the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions globally, 50% will come from just putting in place an LED light bulb, putting in place more efficient motors in your industry. And in terms of just some of the basic outputs, this is just a really small subset. But I think in terms of the last 10 years, we've been moving towards technologies which will be deployed in partnership with key stakeholders, both in industry as well as in our, I'll say, government entities like SAPO. So in terms of the Solar Turtle, we actually have a technology which is based on a master's project. The person has graduated and become a CEO of a company that actually, in partnership with NetBank, provided solar services to ensure that people in the rural area in Eastern Cape can actually go to the ATM like we are in Sandton. So energy is about creating services. And then secondly, in terms of Impala Platinum, a project taking technology or IP developed at University of Western Cape about 5 years ago, actually doing a hydrogen fuel cell forklift. And this forklift actually, in partnership with IDC and other partners, we're taking to market. And last but not least, in terms of SAPO, if you haven't received your mail on time, it's because, unfortunately, SAPO's electric scooters actually break down normally when they're trying to deliver mail, and we're actually creating a solution with hydrogen fuel cells technology to ensure that they can, their electric scooter can work for the full entire part. So I think in terms of this, I just want to pause at this point in time. Really, when we get to this level of deployment, this is when we need jobs. We need graduates from University of Technologies. We need graduates from TVET colleges with the appropriate background, either in electricians as well as plumbers, to ensure that we can deploy these technologies. But also when it comes to manufacturing. Like I say, one of the challenges at DST, we only fund masters and PhDs. But the challenge we found is that the people that we're graduating will not be the ones working in the new sectors. So this is where I think TVET colleges and UOTs actually play a role in terms of creating the new workforce that we need for this sector. Now moving on to the bioenergy strategy, and I think this is speaking to issues as well which are relevant to rural communities. Because in a sense, if we're in the middle of Gauteng, you don't really have the feedstock and the crop that you need to feed into your refineries. So in terms of the bioeconomy strategy, it's looking at establishing biomass transformation value chains. Now, the reason why this is important is first you need to formalize which feedstock and where, because in South Africa, we know we're a water-scarce country, so there are limitations as to which crops that we can use. So in the terms of the progress to date, I think is looking at feasibility studies, looking at where we can locate them based on where existing infrastructure lies, but also in terms of the poverty indexes of certain communities. So the preference is to locate it in communities which have, low income issues, but at the same time have access to the feedstock. So what we're doing is, but along this is establishing biorefinery programs. So I think last year, I'm not sure if you read the news, that there was a biorefinery platform that was deployed in Durban by the DST. And again, it makes sense. We have sugarcane, we have most of the rain in Durban versus Western Cape, which only creates our wine vineyards and so forth. So in terms of this issue, again, human capital development is a critical part of the process. And like I said, we fund masters and PhDs in this program. And on average, 10 to 20 masters and PhDs are funded on an annual basis through this program. But again, when it comes to the work, be it working at a refinery or even doing the work to harvest the feedstock, you don't need masters and PhDs to do this work. And then just looking at a higher level, and this is early this year, that this platform was launched by a minister, and like I said, it looks at all feedstock based on your waste biomass, your algae biomass, which can be grown, looking at your forestry biomass, as well as your sugar biomass. So in a sense, as South Africa, we do have a resource, and in a sense, in terms of what's created, we have bioenergy products, so you produce electricity or biofuels. But in addition to that, we're looking at biolubricants or high-value products that we can sell into the market. Now, in terms of the very next strategy that we're implementing that's critical to the green economy is actually the Global Change Grand Challenge. So the Global Change Grand Challenge talks to our resource or richness of biodiversity in the country and the importance of protecting that despite greenhouse gas emissions and the issues of climate change. And this just goes to, I would say, the key programs under that. So one key program is around water and doing the research and development innovation to come up with innovative solutions for water issues in the country. One talks to waste, as well as environmental services. Now, in terms of the Global Change Grand Challenge, like I said, just at a high level, we're looking at understanding how our planet is changing, because I said we're seeing on a daily basis the negative impacts of climate change in South Africa. Recent droughts in Western Cape, which were predicted by CSR years ago to be drier and so forth. And then I guess one important part of the Global Change Grand Challenge is how to adapt to these changes. So in terms of part of that, like I said, we don't do everything. We have a specific focus on the areas that I've outlined before. And then really the South African Risk and Vulnerability Atlas is the tool that we're sharing with local municipalities to do this. In terms of environmental services, again, they're focusing on these areas. I'll go into detail next. And the last area, the waste RDI roadmap is the focus. And the water RDI roadmap is the focus. But I have 3 minutes, so let me rush a bit. So the water RDI roadmap, again, is looking at increasing the expenditure for R&D in the water sector, but also in terms of ensuring that we have skilled jobs for the future. So again, on an annual basis, about 30 to 40 PhDs and masters are funded. And then also in terms of accelerating solutions, like the issues with drought and so forth. In terms of water, through this program, essentially we look at public R&D and we try to feed it into the private sector through co-funding. And we actually do fund demonstrators, which we think are critical to SMEs that need to take a product to market. So this is an opportunity for an SME that has a product to go for funding through WRC and DST to get funding. In terms of the waste RDI roadmap, like I said, we have a couple of issues which are coming about. You have waste for electronics or e-waste as we call it, which is becoming an issue. So essentially the waste RDI roadmap tells us, based on the waste that we have in this country, how should we use it for our benefit as a country? And in terms of the waste that we're focusing on in the short term, we're looking at plastics, organic waste, as well as electrical equipment. So as we throw away our iPhones, 10s, and 12s, we need to have a solution for dealing with this issue. And in terms of the economy, we're looking at circular economy, which means that you'll have no waste because your waste will be used for something else. And in terms of environmental services, this is, again, an opportunity for SMEs. Okay, so just in closing, I think we're implementing the 10-year innovation plan to create new economies or new sectors. Now, what we've learned is that we're doing this with the view that we want to manufacture locally, so you'll create new jobs in the green economy for technicians, as well as graduates from TVETs and UOT. So I think, like I've said before, we know as DST we're probably spending about $2 billion a year on masters and PhDs. However, I think we need partnerships with Department of Higher Education and Training to ensure that we actually produce the graduates that will be working in the sector. Thank you.